Welcome to another attire seminar hosted by HUMA, the Institute for Humanities in Africa at the University of Cape Town. My name is Ralph Borland, and today we're hosting SENAME KOFFI Agbodjinu, who is joining us here from Togo. And we're very pleased to have SENAME here with us. He was recommended by one of my colleagues, Dominique Somda, and his work practice is really fascinating. It encompasses anthropology, architecture. He has a particular interest in maker movements and the application of technology to an African context and to the idea of the meeting of high and low tech. And he pioneers a kind of a term around this, the low high tech concept. So his work looks at vernacular architecture and vernacular practices. He's helped to start maker spaces in Togo. I've seen documentation of 3D printing projects made from available materials and appropriate technology. I see a mention as well that we can ask SENAME more about running for president, I think, in 2025. So we'll ask you more about that. And SENAME is going to give his presentation in English, but also with French. We do host speakers at HUMA who speak in a range of languages. And we have French speakers in our faculty who will help me because I speak very little French, just a bit. So thank you very much, SENAME. Please feel free to take it away. You have mentioned to me some of the work you're doing within the frame of decolonizing the future, and there are many other touch points, points of connection that we could discuss. So please take the lead.
Thank you, Ralph. Do you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, maybe if you sat maybe a little bit further forward, then we'd hear you a little bit more. But yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I will not talk at all about any of those projects you used to introduce me. I would more like to share some global thoughts about the future and some intuition I have about it. But first, I would like to apologize for two things. The first one is the fact that for sure my English is not good enough to elaborate in profound way about those important subjects, but I don't have the choice in a way, and I will do my best. And the second thing is that I didn't prepare anything. I didn't prepare absolutely anything. So I would prefer to see this moment like a moment of conversation. So do not hesitate to bounce if you want. Feel free. So I will more share about you, as I say, some thoughts. And those thoughts are for the biggest part connected to the digital society we are building right now. And the first intuition I have is that this society have the potential to create a new form of imperialism or a new form of colonization, which will be a very final or terminal colonization, because it will not be only a sort of occupation of physical territory, but it will be an occupation of the real itself, or the reality itself. So I will try to bring the more example I have, or the more arguments I can find to try to share this intuition with you. And the idea is to see what is the place of our continent, Africa, in this sort of dystopia. So the digital age seems to proceed with two claims. The first claims, or the first, in French we say prétention. The first claim is the fact that for a long time, the capitalism tried to convince states or countries to see themselves as business, as society. And now it seems that with this digital area, it is no more the strategy of the capitalism. The capitalists find it more easy to directly transform some business in countries or in states, and how to have the potential of a country by developing their own money, have their own system of justice, etc., etc. So it is the first pretension, or the first claim in this digital society, transforming itself in a form of final imperialism. The second claim is that since the beginning of the human societies, technology used the social structure as a model. All the technology was inspired, by the human social structure, the group, the family, the way that the human organize their societies. And I will explain a little bit later in which sense social structure are technologies. And so what I'm saying is that for a long time, technology was inspired and was supposed to be at the service of the social structure. And what we see as new with the digital area is that the technology don't want anymore to be only inspired by the social structure. The technology have these ambitions to become a society itself, so that humans can live their worlds and live in those societies. And we will have a context in which humans don't need any more social link, because they live in a digital society. So it is a sort of shift from the social structure, which was since the beginning the basis of all the technology. And we have already faced this type of abstraction from the service to become an autonomous concept. We face it with the economy. The economy at the beginning was supposed to be a tool and at the service of human social structure. And the economy emancipates itself for the service and become an autonomous concept, taking his law in itself. And now we have the economy like a very independent concept, and human depending from him. It is not anymore a tool. It is something autonomous we need, and we are supposed to respect all his law. He built his sort of magical law he built to continue to have the power he has. So we have this sort of ethereal movement also in technology with the digital society. But what is very important to see is that all those two claims I'm talking about are very pushed by the metropolization, and the big tech the big techs, the GAFA, as we call them, are all these very hegemonical concepts in technology worlds, all see the city as the way to achieve their potentials. And so they are seeing the city in a very specific way, because you have two ways of seeing the city. The first way of seeing the emergence of city is the what we call in French l'approche contractualiste. It is the approach of Hobbes or Rousseau, by example, as a French thinker, which all see the city as something who creates a sort of global peace. So if you don't want to live in societies in which all the groups are fighting each of them, you can agree to abandon an aspect of your freedom and come in this sort of contract, a large shared contract, which is the city, in which you have a very global freedom shared by everybody. So the city in this vision is supposed to be a good thing. It is supposed to be the way to add more humans to humans and have a very peaceful society by developing a unique way of rules for everybody. But you have also a second way of seeing cities, which is the anarchist way of seeing the cities. And in this second way of seeing cities, what is shown is that cities all over the history was forced for contrast, trying to put by force a very free group of people, nomad people all over the world, very marginal group of humans, by force in a unique contract in which you can control in the maximum the human societies. And in this second way of seeing the city, which is more problematic, people are supposed to be in some case, some case logic, some logical box, and city is supposed to be an accumulation of boxes, and it is this second approach of erection of cities, the digital world, as it is managed right now, seems to have adopted, and they really see it as a way of realizing the maximum of the potential of the digital societies. And of course, it is a mercantile way of seeing the world, because you can sell technology, you can develop and sell technology to individuals, but if you sell technology at the scale of the city, you can multiply in a very interesting way your revenue. So the efforts right now in this capitalism dominated by the digital company is to push people in the cities, because when you are in the cities, you can be controlled. In the industrial time, the capitalism or the force of control or dominating or exploiting people are used to push people to factory, because when you are in the factory, you can be by the same efforts used the tool which is the factory can take your forces of work, so they can exploit you, but they can also control you. You are on the eye of the surveillance, the global surveillance, when you are in the factory. So all the effort was to push people in the factory. But in the new society in building right now, which is the digital societies, we don't want people to be in the factory. We want people to be in their house, because when you are isolated in boxes in your own houses, it is the only one way now the capitalism can exploit you, because the capitalism is right now a digital capitalism exploiting the data. So we need people to be in their house, on a computer, on a technical device. And it is also the way to control you, and for them to make you in a sort of surveillance dispositives. So the movement right now is to build more and more urban societies in which the links, the social links, are more and more fragile, so that you can be on your computer in your own apartment and participate by that in the global digital and global capitalism societies. So what is the connection with Africa? As all of you know, the biggest cities in the future will emerge in these continents, in our continents. And this dystopia of digital societies to make more and more atomized societies and more individual societies for helping this new economy to become global and hegemonic needs our continent to play the game. And most of those big tech have identified that it is in Africa that this fight will take first place. And if the African future cities become those accumulation of box, which is the new way of seeing factory, they will win in Africa, but they will win globally, because 1 citizen on 6 in the world will be in Africa, and in 2050 we will have 1 woman on 4 which will be in Africa, in this continent. So African people cannot continue to be innocent from about this dystopia, or this strategy to use the continent as the place with the future of the capitalism will first should first be waned before become global. But what is more interesting in that is African can be the way or the new frontier, but it is also can propose a sort of very interesting resistance to this program. And I would like to explain that, to talk first about what I'm saying at the beginning, seeing the social structure, the social group as a technology. In fact, the very first technology humanity developed was the link. So the very first technology was human augmented, but it is not a human augmented with technology in his body, or a human augmented in the smart city, because the smart city is a human augmented with all device around him as a prosthesis, and it is not anymore you, who think, it is algorithm who think for you when you are in the smart city. You don't need to talk, it is your data who talk for you. You don't need to feel things with your interface, your physical interface, because you have a lot of captor in your home who feel if it is cold and close all the door for you. And you don't need to move because you have drones who come and bring you all you need. So it is this idea in the smart city is the achievement or the very final moment of seeing the human augmented as someone which is reduced, fixed, staying at one place in his chair and having the technology around him who do everything for him. But the very first technology was, as I'm saying, also a human augmented, but it was human augmented by human. So our elders and the very old traditional society understand that being numerous and having more and more people help to do things quicker and better. So the social structure was seen as a technology, and human societies developed very complex and very interesting subtilité and raffinement. Very.
Dominique, do you want to translate as
yeah, I think it's the same word in English, right? Subtleties. I don't know. I wouldn't say better.
Okay. So you have a lot of complexity in human structure. If you are anthropologist, you can see it. Very, very, very profound refinements in human structure, the group, the tribal society, etc. But you have only complexification in digital technology. And if I have the time, I will explain it. So the group was the first technology developed by human societies. And this technology have a very interesting aspect is that you cannot program it in as an obsolescence programmed spirit. If you use a hammer too much, the hammer will have at some moments it will break, you know. And all the technology you use often become less performance or less powerful. But the human structure, the more you use it, the more it becomes stronger. So it cannot be programmed for an obsolescence, you know. And as the digital technologies try to replicate the way the human structure are working, the danger is that they come and erase all the potential of the human structure. And this potential of the human structure is in a way patrimonialized in Africa. We are one of the last test area in the world where the societies are not in this final achievement way of atomization. You know, we still have a lot of subtleties, a lot of refinements in the way we collaborate, the solidarity, the way of articulating the human structure and the social structure and the link, seeing the link. So the danger with the digital world coming in Africa is in the potential of its have to erase all these social resources we still have. For giving you an example, me, I live in Lomé, and if by example I have some urgency, I take often the example of my daughter having some illness, I need to bring her to hospital. And if I don't have a car, I just have to go outside in my neighborhood and ask any of my neighbors to help me bring her to the hospital with his car. And everybody in the neighborhood will fight for having this honor to help me. Not because in my neighborhood people are the best people in the world, or not because Africa have the best humans on the world, but because by doing that, my neighbor know that he creates an account on me. And the day he will need also a help, he can come to me and I will have le devoir. I am supposed to help him back. Or he can also come to anyone in the neighborhood as the neighborhood is connected and asking for help. People will help him because they know that he helped me. So this social structure is what I mobilized often a few years ago. But now, and by doing that, we have a neighborhood who is more and more coherent, more and more strong, because we all help each other. But now, if I have a problem and I need a car to go somewhere quickly, what my first reflex is to go on an app and call for a drive using the equivalent of Uber we have here. And by doing that, maybe I have more performance in what I want to achieve. Gozen, yes. But I neglect another technology I have in my possession. And by neglecting more and more, those technology will come to a point that this technology will lose all his efficiency, and we will achieve in this stage the potential of this dystopia of seeing the city as an accumulation of isolated people, because when you are isolated, you consume more and more. If you are in a group, you don't need to have all the devices, because if only one guy have a device, the group can pass it one to another. But if you are in a structure with a very high level of atomization, for each of you need to have all the devices, because you don't talk to the others. So it is the challenges we have right now. Is a little bit caricatural to say it like this, but to resist to this technological city proposed from the Silicon Valley. And just maybe to finish and let you maybe ask question or launch a conversation. What is very maybe more interesting is that we face from the West, we inherited from the West an history of abstraction, which puts all the traditional societies in the world, all the organic way of seeing human societies in the world in crisis. And it is something who come from a very specific history, which is the European history, but become global. It is not the software of all the humanity. And these things came from the modernity in the European history. With the modernity, the European history makes some cuts. First, a cut in the natural structure, in the liana, and then make a cut in the human structure, in the link. So the first cut is what was theorized by Descartes, and what we call now naturalism, is this idea to Descartes share, seeing human societies are enslaved in the natural structure, in the biospherical structure. And by saying that, the human societies need to leave the natural structure and build their structure so that they can have the power on the natural structure, and don't link anymore or not be entangled anymore in the natural structure, but take their emancipation of the the natural structure, and he theorized that as a very way of human to realize their own potentials, and humans are not supposed to live in nature and to link with nature. They need to build what we call a civilization to be humans. So it was the first rupture. I don't know if you say rupture in English. It's the first rupture, a disorganical rupture in which we inherit from the European history. The second one was a rupture with the link with the human structure. And this rupture was modelized on the first one. So after saying that humans should leave the natural structure, the European thinkers of modernity says that humans should emancipate itself from the group structure, from the social structure. And you need to be individual to achieve your potential. By staying in a tribal way of seeing the world, you are not really emancipated, you are not free. So you need to cut also all the link with all the humans and realize your full potential. And this second disorganical rupture was a lot alimenté, nourished by the arts, the economical theory, the modern economical theory itself, seeing the world as naturally as a dispositive of fighting, or people fighting each other, etc. So you have two levels of abstraction, two ethereal movements in the history. The first was the abstraction from the nature, and the second one was an abstraction from the human structure to have a very atomized societies. And we are facing a third moment of abstraction with technologies decided to be anymore only tool, or not obey only to the logic of, in French we say auxiliaire tools, but become autonomous and create their own logic. And at some point, if those three levels of abstraction coalesce, and we have some elements of this conjunction right now, and we experiment this conjunction during the quarantine in the pandemic crisis, if this conjunction came and these three levels of abstraction find a way to become coherent, we will leave the real as we know it right now for a new real, which will be a sort of achieved artificial, the achieved artificial, or the final artificial. And it is this final artificial which is the new form, in fact, of colonization we are facing right now, which is not only a colonization of physical elements, but the colonization of the real itself by artificialize everything, the nature, the interaction, and also the truth. So you have this philosophy of separation built by the West during the modernity epopee, which is now embedded in the technology itself. And we need to develop a counter-proposition as philosophy, which will be a proposition of entanglement ethics to fight this global or systematic or holistic separation movement we are facing right now. And my intuition is that maybe the West was gone too far in the idea of separation, and it will not be possible for the West to create this revolution of entanglement. And it will be the responsibility of society who are not completely disorganized in the sense that they still maintain some organicity in their way of seeing the world, to create this counter-revolution and fighting the global separation ethics we are facing. And just for finish, just to give some intuition about what will be the tool we can use in this counter-revolution, I think we should mobilize, and we'll need to mobilize a resource of imagination, because all the separation philosophy and all the modernity is leads with a paradigm, which is the paradigm of the profits, the capitalism. We need to build a new paradigm in which what is valuable is not what we can measure with number, but adding some new value in the accountability of everything, and give more and more value to some elements who are not maybe easier to for the paradigm we are in right now, which is the global software of the world, which is not can be measured with numbers, you know. And it is Vandana Shiva who said, a woman who puts a seed in the ground, on the soil, don't appear in any accountability or any accountability in the world we are right now. But a man who cuts a tree with the machine of using number can understand it. He can see this machine can see the value of this action. And most if he cuts the tree with a machine, we have some production of energy we can understand in the paradigm of profits. But we need to understand that we need a woman to put a soil a seed in the ground before having a tree to cut. And how can we measure also the value of those moments we are not seeing the value right now because they are invisibilisés. They are not too far of our calculation, or they are just not we can just understand it with the paradigm we have right now. But for building a new paradigm, we need to use some resource of imaginaries. We need to mobilize new archive and not be only dependent about the West archive. And we need to see, we need to learn from other geography and see how traditional organic societies develop contracts in which the tool structure is entangled with the human structure, and the human structure is entangled in the natural structure. How do they build these three levels of have a very coherent way of linking, and use those resources of imaginary to build new cosmogony for our age and new transversal cosmogony, even digital or technological area, technological age cosmogony. One other intuition in this desire to fight the global philosophy of the separation is that we will need a new feminine revolution, because instinctively, people who are the keeper of the liana and the link are in those traditional societies, women. And as we need to fight things by the elements, the fragilize to become strong, we need also, I think, to push this revolution or create space for this new feminist revolution. And just to finish, I think the continent itself should have to liberate more energy and we can liberate all the potential of energy we have, staying in the border we still have right now. The young energy cannot achieve his potential, considering that he is limited by some border. The young energy needs to have all the space of the continent to become to feel itself very free and achieve his potential. And of course, the tool of this dystopia painting, which is the city, will not respect the borders. We will have some regional cities. We are talking, by example, of a unique city from Lagos to Abidjan. So we need to anticipate this future and liberate the energy it needed to correct all the issue we can face by going to this form of dystopia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, SENAME. That was a very powerful analysis, and a lot of that resonates with me. In fact, my mind is overflowing with ideas after listening to you. And I just want to mention a few things in response, and then also open it to the other participants. But one image when you were talking about the woman planting the seed is the Terminator seed. You know, the bioengineered seeds that are designed not to be reproducible. So they create a plant that won't produce more seeds. And Monsanto does this so that you have to keep buying the seeds from them. So they take away one of the most fundamental aspects of a natural being like a plant. And because of profit, they remove that capability. And there's a lot of concern about what will happen if Terminator genes enter the system. But also just to identify, I think when you talk about the individual and society, or what tendencies technology has, those are very fundamental tensions that we keep trying to negotiate. And when you talked about asking your neighbors for a lift instead of using Uber or another service, it made me think about how, you know, by using Uber, you can have a service without attachment, without obligation. So you no longer have this obligation to an individual. And you can specify with Uber that you don't want to talk to the driver even, for example. So there are these ways of depersonalizing, atomizing people to remove obligation, but then also to remove the benefits of those networks. And just one thing to mention though is that, you know, that Airbnb has a predecessor in couchsurfing.com. So couchsurfing.com was a free community that used the internet to share homes so that you could go and stay in someone's home in another country for free. And then you could go and stay with someone else because it was an exchange. But it was enabled by the internet. And so I think part of what I can see is also how the digital domain went from the 1980s or 90s until now, starting out with a lot of hope as a free space in which people could share things using this technology. And like everything else, it's been brought into the logic of the market and of profit. And then the question stands of how much, as you say, is embedded in the technology that leads to those outcomes, and how much is the technology capable of resistance, of being used for community or being used for resistance. And that's another one of those central tensions. What is in the technology, and what is the technology expressing of the politics of the society that uses it? So yeah, just some input from me in response. Thank you very much. Is there anybody here who would like to participate? I do see that, just to pick out one person, Ziad Borat is a South African science and technology and the politics of technology scholar based in the US. He's here, it's early in the morning for him in LA. I'm going to ask him if he wants to unmute if he is online here.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Ralph, for that introduction, and thanks as well to SENAME for a fascinating discussion. I was really moved about, the ways in which, especially since I'm South African, UCT is actually my alma mater. SENAME, I'm really interested in the ways in which Africans, in particular African communities, can form collective and individual level resistances to and I use this word that the dispositif of surveillance in the kind of Althusserian sense, and how you see that materializing on the day-to-day basis, particularly as we have become enmeshed, not only, I think, in global capitalism's throes, but other ideologies as well. When I'm thinking about, for example, influences from China in particular, one of the motifs is that Africa has become a kind of a scramble place for the new bipolar hegemony. I'm interested in your thoughts on that, in our positionality as respect this kind of broader political economy as it relates to digital society and technology.
Thank you, Ziad. Would you like to respond, SENAME?
Yeah, it is. I don't have any. How to say it, any ready-made solution for that. I think we need to develop new laboratories, and it is, by example, what we are doing with the App City project I manage in Dome, with this idea to say that it is a question of paradigm, and the paradigm is something which is very powerful, and the characteristic of the paradigm is something who mobilize you, but you don't even know that you are thinking, because you are in this, you have this, you are dependent on this this construction. So we need to shift the paradigm and build a new construction, and it is very difficult to do it. For directly the solution, the device, talking about technology, and all this technology we are using, maybe we can shift the paradigm by just moving the laboratories from the very hermetic Silicon Valley way of seeing them to the neighborhoods in Africa, and letting people develop themselves their technologies. And technologies are enough open today for having this utopia of saying that each neighborhood develop his own technology. And by doing that, by having a network of laboratories, grassroots laboratories, and giving them the capacity, allow them to impact their environment with the technology they develop themselves, you can civilize a little bit the digital age, because you will have technology who are not directly in conflict with the social structure of technology, because it was developed by people who are connected one to another and are supposed to be at the service of this connection. So it is an answer between others, but I think we can have more and more solutions like this if we first explore the paradigm. We didn't even authorize ourselves to think about those type of radicalism or those type of revolution, because we thought that the paradigm we are sharing right now is something who cannot be moved. So we need to have this capacity to say that it is just a paradigm. We can change it and seeing the world in a very different way. And we have a very good opportunity to do that with the crisis we face with the pandemic. But we didn't take this opportunity because it was in the history the best moment to decide to leave completely the old paradigm and build a new paradigm of the capacity of the communities to become more, again, organic and not have this sort of global city with specialized place to produce technology for others.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sename. Thank you, Ziad. Yeah, I was interested in your mention of the openness of the technology, because it does draw attention to how a technology can be designed with more or less openness, you know, more or less adaptability, and that we can critique individual technologies according to how open they are, and that there are advocacy groups that try to keep technologies open, even on the level of a appliance for your home, like can you fix your vacuum cleaner, or can you open your phone, or can you fix your car yourself? And you know, there are you know, movements to design within. I think it would also be interesting to drill down into what kinds of technologies are more capable of resistance, or can carry those social values that you're interested in, and how would you set about highlighting those technologies? Thank you.
I agree.
Good. Yeah, and I think that, yeah, with the work you do with maker spaces, for example, and the idea of hackers, that's part of that paradigm. Do we have any other input from the participants, audience in this room? If you use the reactions button to put up your hand, then I can see you and ask you to unmute. So if anybody would like to ask a further question, you'd be welcome.
Ralph, you have a hand. There's a hand in the room from Oriole.
Oh, right. Okay, great. Thank you. Oriole?
Cool. Can you hear me? I think my camera
Yeah.
on my phone's not working. Well, it says I can't access it. But I'll just carry on. I think it's a privacy thing. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting discussion. What really stood out to me was the last one of the last points around kind of communities developing their own technology. I feel like that's maybe over time that's what will start happening, because globalization has been a bit like that in terms of, you know, creating a more of a central, well, not centralized, but a kind of westernized world that controls the paradigm or the culture, and then that's filtered in that way. And technology works in the same way. It's kind of built by these big empires, and then everyone slowly starts to adopt it, and over time it becomes kind of the central aspect, a bit like globalization, how that worked out. And then industrialization also it's also not very accessible, and that's why the kind of, I guess, the colonization and the Western world was able to dominate in that space, you know, over some time. And when technology becomes more accessible to developing tools for yourself in the way that it's more affordable, well, not affordable, but accessible in a way. I feel like that's where things could potentially change, because I feel like it'll always be there now that it's been developed. It's a matter of how to rethink it, to be less centralized and more decentralized to communities and their needs and their culture and that kind of thing.
Thank you, Ariel. SENAME, any further comments that you'd like to make or observations? You're on mute there. Are you running for president?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's good. I think you'd make a great president. See what opposition you'll come up against, and it would be interesting to see how technology might play a role in your campaign as well, how you could make positive use of it. I mean, I think I'm thinking about your example of the asking your neighbors for a ride, and how you pointed to automation as being one of the central features of technology now is to automate. So now the blockchain offers a smart contract instead of a human-to-human agreement. And there's this kind of promise that technology might take care of all the difficult things, because it is also difficult doing that human-to-human agreeing and negotiating. So yeah, there's something interesting there, I think, about automation and the potential of technology. Yeah. How far you can make it serve your ends. So I'd be really interested to see how you'll be using technology to instill greater humanity and connection rather than detracting from it. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, SENAME. Thanks for spending time with us. Thanks for sharing your thoughts.